Hi, everybody. It's Hilary here from We Love Smart Keto. Hope you're having a great day. What we're going to be talking about here today is how to stay under 20 grams of net carbohydrates per day. I had a question in the group from somebody, and so I thought it would be a good just to come on. I thought it was a really great question and good to come and talk about that here. So just give me a 1 if you're watching this live. Put a 2 in the comments if you're watching this on replay. And as I said, what we're going to be talking about is how to stay under 20 grams of net carbs per day, which is not a great deal, but actually it's very achievable. And just with a little bit of understanding, it's actually quite straightforward to do. So first of all, let's just tell me in the comments, do you find it hard or easy to stay under 20 grams of net carbs per day? If you find it hard, type hard in the comments. And if you find it easy, put easy in the comments. And we'll talk about that in a second. And hopefully, if you find it hard, I'll make it a little bit easier for you. So first of all, let's just have a chat about why it's important to really reduce our carbs here and what is it that we're trying to achieve. Now, keto is reducing our carbohydrates down to as little as possible. It's eating 1 to 2 grams of protein for body weight for every kilo of our body weight. So if your lean body weight, not your total body weight, but your lean body mass, which is your bones and your muscles and your organs. So for me, for example, I'm about 50 kilos lean body mass. So, I need somewhere between, depending it's 1 or 2, somewhere between 75 and 150 grams of protein per day. So just check the comments here. Yes, Alex, you find it easy to stay under 20 grams of net carbs, and you're doing really great on this lifestyle. I know from the things that you've been telling us in the group, and that's absolutely fantastic. So maybe put in the comments your top tip for somebody who's finding it a little bit hard. So low net carbs, 1 to 2 grams of protein for every kilo of lean body mass that we have. And then the rest of it is made up with fats, and that's good fats. So not seed oils, but it's things like olive oil, butter, cream, those sorts of things, avocado oil as our fats. So what's the point? Why are we trying to keep our carbs low? And the main reason is that we're trying to keep our blood sugar levels even, and keeping our blood sugar levels even will also keep our insulin even. And so what we're trying to do is not have spikes in our insulin levels, try and keep our insulin levels low, try and reduce or keep our insulin resistance very low, because that's the key thing about keto, is we're trying to make keep ourselves insulin sensitive, because higher insulin levels will ultimately prevent us losing weight, if that's what our goal is. And it can also lead to inflammation and things like that. So that's the principle of why we're trying to keep carbs low. So let's just have a chat then about what's the difference between carbs and net carbs. So you sometimes hear about total carbs and net carbs. Well, it's a pretty simple difference. So carbohydrates, so for example, something like sweet corn on the cob, that has fiber in the corn, but it also has the net carbs, which is the carbs that we can absorb. So there's the part that's the fiber, the fibrous element of, say for example, we're eating spinach. That's predominantly made of fibrous carbohydrates. It has lots of nutrients in it, but not so much carbs that we can absorb. It has complex carbs that our bodies can't digest, and they pass all the way through the gut and come out the other end. But the reason that they're useful is because it helps keep the lower part of our gut healthy by helping the microbes, the bacteria that we have gazillions of. That's the official number, gazillions, but billions and billions of gut bacteria. It helps keep them healthy. And so we want that fibrous carbohydrate that's useful. Although there is some evidence to suggest that if you've gone completely carnivore, that you perhaps don't need that fiber. But for those of us that eat vegetables, we do need that fiber through our gut to help keep us regular and to feed those gut microbes that are in our gut bacteria to help keep them healthy. So that's the reason that we want the fibrous component. But the other less complex carbohydrates, the single chain carbohydrates like we have in glucose and fructose, so we might have in candy, for example, or in potatoes or rice or flour, those simpler chain, while they're longer chain carbohydrates, they ultimately get broken down into short chain, into single chain sugars, so glucose, fructose, galactose, which is in milk. And it doesn't matter whether it comes from a potato or from rice, it still gets broken down, and that's into a sugar, and that's what spikes our glucose and causes our insulin to react. So that's what we're trying to keep really low, is those net carbs, those carbs that can be absorbed into our system, not like the complex carbs. Does that make sense? That the carbs that won't be absorbed, they're okay. But the simpler carbs, whether they're in a potato or rice or something like that, we want to avoid those because they'll get broken down and will spike our glucose, spike our insulin. So give me a yes if that makes sense in the comments. Just put yes, and so I know that you're following along well with what we're talking about. So now we know what the difference between a net carb is and a total carb. So the net carbs is just the amount of carbohydrate in a food minus the bit that's not digestible. So how do we then keep under 20 grams? Because 20 grams is really just a few teaspoons. It's not a great deal. So the simplest way is, first of all, we don't eat flour, we don't eat rice, and we don't eat anything that has grown under the ground. So anything that's a tuber. So a carrot, a sweet potato, a yam, a potato, a turnip, all those sorts of things. Well, turnips might not be so bad, but all those things in general, just as a rule of thumb, they have higher carbs in them, higher net carbs. Thanks, Alex. You're following along great. Thank you very much. And so we want to keep that. They have storage. I mean, they're tubers that enable the new plant to grow. So obviously they're full of food for that new plant, and we're just sort of taking it and putting it in our bodies. So we want to avoid that. So, avoid wheat, avoid rice. So that's pasta, breads, all those sorts of things, and avoid any vegetables that grow under the ground. So, and also corn on the cob, bit high in carbohydrate, because again, it's a seed and it's sort of storing, especially the cultivated varieties that we have. It's giving storage food for the new plant. So we want to avoid that in corn on the cob. So what's left? Well, there's loads and loads of things left. There's spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, any vegetable pretty much that grows above the ground, and particularly if it's nice and green and leafy, that's predominantly full of the carbs that we can't digest, the indigestible carbs, and so perfectly fine, but also full of good nutrients that are great for us. So if you can do that, that really helps in just keeping those net carbs low. It's very hard to overeat cauliflower. It's very hard to overeat spinach. To get up to that 20 grams of net carbs would be very hard. So go for your life, eat as many of those as you'd like, and then pretty much, and then what you'll find is if you pair that with, a nice olive oil dressing with a bit of vinaigrette, olive oil and balsamic, for example, that will then keep those net carbs down below. It will also help with the absorption of the nutrients that you need. So that's a really fantastic way. Just a nicely dressed salad or even just putting some butter onto your vegetables, your steamed vegetables, for example, absolutely delicious. Or stir fry them with perhaps some macadamia oil. Just a really delicious way to have your vegetables and to get the nutrients from those vegetables into a form that we can absorb them. So just a few things just to watch out for with carbs is that nuts, particularly if you're trying to lose weight, Some nuts like hazelnuts, for example, macadamia is very high in fats, very low in carbs, also good to avoid the amount of carbs, but you can still have too many just because we still want to keep if you're trying to lose weight, we are still trying to keep total calories a little bit lower. So just be aware of those, that they do, they're very satiating, they'll make you feel really full, but, do have a bit of a heavy calorie load. But there are some nuts that's better to try to avoid, and that's a couple of my favorite nuts, cashews and peanuts, because they're actually not true nuts, they're actually legumes. So they're beans, they're kind of like the same sort of family as beans, and so they do have a higher carbohydrate content. So just be careful not to replace your root vegetables with nuts, particularly if you're trying to lose weight. You will find them filling, but it's very easy to, instead of having a small handful of nuts, it's easy to have, several handfuls or a bowl full of nuts. So just be really, really careful about substituting those out. So that's a bit of a summary. I hope you find that useful. Tell me what you're going to change, if anything, having listened to me talk about net carbs and how to stay under 20 grams of net carbs per day. It just takes a little bit of practice to do it. But once you've found out things that you really love, for me, for example, I really love cauliflower mash instead of potato mash. So I just do cauliflower mash with, some cream. I really add, lots of salt and pepper, really spice it up. Sometimes I might even add a bit of horseradish or, a handful of Parmesan cheese, for example, can make it really, really delicious without, having any carbs really, any net carbs in it really. So, just a little bit of creativity can really go a long way. I know that in the group we post lots of delicious recipes, so there's lots of options. It just takes that little bit of trying things and changing things, and I'm sure you'll find some things that you'll love that are pretty delicious. So I hope that's answered your questions about net carbs, and we've focused on carbs today. Later in the week and next week we'll talk a bit more about protein and about fats. As I said, this week we're going to be getting back a little bit more to the core of keto and the keto lifestyle, what it's about. We've been talking a bit about mindset and other things over the last few weeks. So I just wanted to come back and talk specifically about the components of what we eat on keto. So I hope you found that's helpful. One thing I still do need to are all cheeses good? There's a question here from Lana. So there's the answer to that is in general, yes. Cheeses are very low in general. There's an exception, and very low carbs. Just be aware that they do have some carbs, but really not too much of an issue. But one thing that does have higher carbs is processed cheese, so those cheese that comes in wrappers or the string cheese. So just be very careful to read the back of the packet. Anything that's highly processed, don't really recommend. Try and make it as simple and as natural. Remember, we talked a couple of weeks ago about processed food and how processed is processed food. Well, cheese is basically fermented, so you want it just to be as simple as possible. So look on the back, try and make sure it doesn't have any additives, and also just make sure some of those, like the Kraft type things, just look on the back because they can have higher carbs in them. But also just be aware that, again, while they're fats and they're good fats in cheeses, they can be quite calorie heavy. So if you're trying to lose weight, just eat enough to make you full, just till you feel comfortably full. Just wait 15 minutes because it takes a little while for our fullness response, satiety response, as it's called, the leptin that tells us that we're full. It takes a little while for that hormonal process to work. So just eat a bit, wait, and then if you're still hungry, have a bit more. But, try not to overdose. Cheese is one of my favorite things. Love a good cheese. So, that's something that I have to be a bit mindful of. So, Lana, I hope that answers your question there. Just one more thing I just need to tell you is the winner of this week's most participative and helpful member of the group, and it is, drum roll, second time winner, I do believe. It's Terry Hastings. So we'll be popping that in the group. So congratulations, Terry. There's some fierce competition. We have some really supportive and wonderful members who post some really great stuff in the group. And there's a couple sitting here in the group listening to this, I know. Lana, I'm glad that helped. Thank you. That's great. So thank you so much, guys. We'll see you in the group over the week, and I'll try and pop back and do another live either Wednesday or Friday. Oh, sorry, your Tuesday or no, the other way around. Yes, your Tuesday or Thursday this week. I'm not quite sure, just trying to figure out what's happening during the week, but I'll certainly be in again in the week. So happy keto lifestyle. I hope you've had a great weekend, and we'll see you soon in the group. Bye.